Okay, so in our previous class, we were discussing about deriving an expression for the group velocity. Group velocity and the related dispersion due to the what do you call as material dispersion. So material dispersion is because of the fact that the materials are always dispersive in nature. Dispersive material means it's a material whose refractive index is not a constant, rather the refractive index is a function of wavelength. So depending upon what is the wavelength of the photon that is traveling through the medium, the signal would see a different refractive index. So such mediums are called as dispersive mediums. So a dispersive medium will always result in material dispersion, and also along with the fact that the light source, what you are used for launching signals or photons inside an optical fiber, they always have a finite line width. So which means that the light source is going to launch or is going to emit a bunch of photons that have slightly different frequencies or slightly different wavelengths. So can others please mute their microphone? I hear some noise. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So you have, which means that the photons that are traveling inside an optical fiber is not traveling with a constant velocity. Rather, each of these photons, they have a velocity what is called as the group velocity. And that group velocity, the expression for the group velocity is given by d omega by dk. So for deriving the material dispersion parameter, we started with the group velocity. The reason why we are starting with group velocity is because when you are launching a pulse has several frequency components or several wavelength components. So they have different wavelengths, and each of these wavelengths are going to travel with different velocities, and therefore they travel as a group, and you call it as the group velocity. So you started with this expression. The group velocity is given by d omega by dk, which is the inverse of dk by d omega. And knowing the fact that the wave number k is given by 2 pi by lambda, which is nothing but omega by c. So you start with this one, you differentiate this, and finally you know that the group velocity is given by 1 by c into n of lambda naught minus lambda naught into dn divided by d lambda naught. So you just take the differential, you are going to get this. So if you know what is the velocity, so you have a group of photons which are traveling at different velocities, and their respective velocities are given by this expression. So you know that the time that is taken by the pulse to travel a distance of L, if you assume that the length of the optical fiber is L, then the time that is taken by the entire pulse is given by the distance traveled divided by velocity. So that means L divided by Vg. So that would be the time which would be taken by the pulse to reach the receiver, and that time. So if you look at this expression, this n of lambda naught minus lambda naught into dn divided by d lambda. So this entire expression is what is called. So this has a this is refractive index. So you call it as the group index or the group refractive index, which is denoted by capital Ng. So as this pulse is, so if you are assuming that if you are assuming that the source which is used for launching the signal inside an optical fiber is characterized by a spectral line width of delta lambda naught. So remember, every optical source is going to have a finite line width. You call it as the full width and half maximum or whatever it is. So it always has a finite line width, which is denoted by delta lambda naught. So you know that the most commonly used optical sources are lasers and LEDs. So one is laser, that is, and the other one is LED. Both of them can be used for launching signals inside optical fiber. Even though laser has a smaller line width and LEDs has a larger line width. So, however, you can use both of them, but we prefer lasers. So all these light sources have a finite line width. So if you know what is the line width, then you can actually calculate what is the total spread, which is given by d tau divided by d lambda naught into delta lambda naught, which means d by d lambda naught, we already know what is this tau, which is given by L by C into n of lambda naught minus lambda naught into dn by d lambda naught into delta lambda naught. So this is the line width. So this is the line width of the optical source, line width. This is the line width. So then what you have to do is to calculate the broadening delta tau. So delta tau is the broadening. If broadening is not there, if all the pulse is arriving at the same time interval, then delta tau is going to be 0. Delta tau indicates, so let's say that you have one spectral component lambda 1 and the other spectral component lambda 2. So let's say that these lambda 1 and lambda 2 is traveling through an optical fiber. They arrive at different time intervals. Their wavelengths are not going to change, but they arrive at different time intervals. So what is the difference in the arrival time, or what is the delay in the arrival time? That delay is what is called as delta tau. So you can, so to calculate this, you again differentiate this. So L by C is a constant, so I take this outside. So if so this gives me dn of lambda naught divided by d lambda naught. If I differentiate this one minus, now these two functions, they are function of lambda naught. So you will have to apply the product rule. So you apply that and you are going to get delta tau is given by minus L divided by C into lambda naught into d square n of lambda naught divided by d lambda naught square into delta tau. So if I multiply and divide this by lambda naught, I'm going to get minus L by C. So I'm going to get minus L by C. So L is the length of the optical fiber, C is the velocity of light, lambda square is the center wavelength. So if you're launching everything, or lambda naught is the free space wavelength. So so lambda naught square into d square n of d square n divided by d lambda naught square. So this term, what I have written inside the square bracket, this is a dimensionless quantity, and this has to be multiplied by delta lambda naught divided by lambda naught. So the material dispersion parameter, so this one usually has a unit of picosecond per kilometer per nanometer. So what is the, if you have an optical pulse which travels inside an optical fiber of, let's say, 1 kilometer, and if the line width of the optical source is 1 nanometer, what is the time delay that happens for the individual pulses? So that is given by delta tau. This has the units of picosecond per kilometer per nanometer. So if I know what is delta tau, then the material dispersion parameter is defined as dm, which is called as the material dispersion parameter, is defined as delta tau divided by L into delta lambda naught. So this is the definition of this. So if I divide that, then this term, so yeah, this term, so delta tau is given by minus L by C into lambda naught square into d square n divided by d lambda naught square into delta lambda divided by lambda naught. And the definition of material parameter is dm. The material dispersion parameter is given by the delay divided by L divided by delta lambda naught. So again, this is the length of the optical fiber. This delta lambda naught is the line width of the optical source. So if I divide that, then I get this expression. So if I convert this into picosecond per kilometer per nanometer, I get this as 1 by lambda naught C into lambda naught square into d square n divided by d lambda naught square into 10 raised to 9 picosecond per kilometer per nanometer. So this parameter is what is called as the the material dispersion parameter. It's called as the material dispersion parameter. So now if you look at this expression, so you want this material dispersion to be minimum. So if you want to minimize that, what all things should you minimize? Or if you want to minimize the broadening, let's say you want to minimize broadening. In other words, you want to minimize intra-model dispersion. So what all things should you minimize?
Line width, length.
Yeah, obviously you should always minimize the line width. The spectral line width or the full width at half maximum. You should always minimize that. And which light source has the least spectral line width?
Laser.
Lasers.
So
Monochrome
laser
active.
is the optical source which has the least line width. Now there are different kinds of lasers. So let's say that you are given a bunch of lasers and then you are asked to design an optical communication system. Then for minimizing dispersion, you should choose that laser which has the least line width. So you will see that. So we'll see that in coming classes. We'll see that we generally use semiconductor lasers for optical communication, but we use certain special techniques we apply certain special techniques on a semiconductor laser so that you can minimize delta lambda naught. So you want to use lasers, and we should also ensure that the laser what we use has the least line width. The other factor what can be used for minimizing dispersion is the length of the optical fiber. So if you have a larger separation between between the transmitter and the receiver, so unfortunately you cannot minimize L. So L is given or is a constant. So nevertheless, if you can, shorter the traveling distance, then obviously the broadening also would be smaller. Okay, so that's all I want to discuss about intramodel dispersion. So any questions on this?
No, sir.
Okay, so intramodel dispersion. Okay, fine. So you will have to use the least. You will have to use the laser with the least having the least line width. So intramodel dispersion is also called as chromatic dispersion. It's also called as chromatic dispersion. So it's because of the fact that optical fibers are dispersive in nature, and also for the fact that the line width of the source, so the optical source always have a finite line width. Okay, so here is the comparison. Laser has a smaller line width compared to LEDs. Nevertheless, in some applications, we still use LEDs. For example, if the distance between transmitter and receiver is short, then L is going to be smaller. And if you are not really worried about the dispersion, or let's say that the distance is not as large that the dispersion is not that serious, then we don't want to use lasers, because lasers are usually costly, whereas LEDs are much cheaper. So the application where we want to use also, so the sources what you want to use is also decided by which application you want to use that. Okay, now coming to the fact, so I said that materials are dispersive in nature. So what is a dispersive medium? Dispersive medium is a medium whose refractive index is a function of wavelength. So if you plot the in fact, if you take any material, in fact, almost all the materials are dispersive in nature. That means their refractive index is not a constant, rather the refractive index is a function of wavelength. So if you take the typical silica optical fiber or silicon dioxide, silica is nothing but silicon dioxide. If you plot the refractive index of silica as a function of wavelength, you get a plot something like this. You see that it's not a constant. At different wavelengths, the refractive index, silica fibers, the core has different refractive index. That means if you are choosing this particular wavelength, the refractive index is somewhat this one. Whereas if I'm using, let's say, 1.5 micrometer, then the refractive index is going to be different. Even semiconductor materials, if you take gallium arsenide or indium phosphide or any semiconductor material, their refractive index is also not a constant. The only medium whose refractive index is a constant is vacuum. That's the only non-dispersive medium. But all other materials, all other mediums are dispersive in nature. So if you have an expression like this, or if you have a material whose refractive index varies like this, you can generally write the refractive index of that material as a function of, you can expand this as a polynomial. So for example, n of lambda naught can be written as C0 plus C1 into lambda naught square plus so on. So C0, C1, C2, all these are constants. And lambda naught is the wavelength at which you are interested to calculate the refractive index, and L is also a constant. So this is the expression for the refractive index for silica optical fibers. And you call this expression as the Cellimer equation. Cellimer's equation. This equation gives you the refractive index of a material as a function of wavelength. So I just showed you this graph to make you understand that optical fibers which are made of silica does not have a constant refractive index. Rather, the refractive index is always a function of wavelength. Okay, so now if you so this is the refractive index of optical fibers. Now for this optical fiber, if you calculate what is the material dispersion parameter, remember material dispersion parameter is given by dm, and what is the definition? So how did we define that? The material dispersion parameter dm is defined as delta tau divided by L into delta lambda naught. So where delta tau is the delay, is the time delay between the arrival of optical pulses, L is the length of the optical fiber, and delta lambda naught is the line width of the optical source. Now, for a silica optical fiber, for a classical silica optical fiber, if I plot this parameter dm, this parameter is going to decide what is the delay in the arrival of pulses. So if I plot this material dispersion parameter as a function of wavelength, you would see that at a particular wavelength range, which is somewhere close to 1.3 micron, you would see that there is a particular window where the dispersion is the least. You have almost zero dispersion. So that wavelength range is somewhere around. So there is a region where the material dispersion is almost zero or negligible. So somewhere around 1300 nanometer. So this wavelength is very important for silica optical fibers. That's the wavelength at which silica optical fibers has the least dispersion. So remember, when you're launching signals inside optical fiber, the signal is going to degrade. Degrade means it is going to lose the amplitude, and also it's going to broaden. So if you send signals at 1300 nanometer, you can ensure that the signals will have the least dispersion. So if you have the least dispersion, then you can always increase the distance between the transmitter and the receiver, because dispersion depends on the amount of the material dispersion, also depends on L. So if delta tau is smaller, then you can make L as large as possible. You can always increase the distance between transmitter and receiver. So if you do that, then so if the dispersion is small, what is the advantage? If I am sending pulses in the form of ones and zeros, so they are going to hardly broaden. So you might have very small broadening, but doesn't matter. The receiver can clearly understand whether you have sent a 1 or a 0. So then it's very advantageous for us. However, it's not only the dispersion that matters. You also have an attenuation. And if you remember the loss curve for an optical fiber, for a silica optical fiber, we found that optical fibers have the least loss at which wavelength?
1500.
1500.
So it has the least loss somewhere around 1550 nanometer. So these two wavelengths, please don't remember. Please don't forget these two wavelengths. 1300 nanometer is important because optical fibers have the least dispersion. So whenever you remember dispersion, please remember about the shape, the broadening of the optical pulse. Dispersion means if it passes through an optical fiber, the pulse broadens like this. It broadens like this. So broadening means, so if two pulses broaden and let's say two ones overlap, then the receiver will not be able to understand whether it has received a 1 or a 0. So you don't want that to happen. And attenuation means losses. Attenuation means what will happen? The amplitude decreases. So this would become something like this at the receiver, assuming that there is no broadening. So if the loss is large, then once the number of photons that are embedded in a one is going to be small. So the receiver, the photodetector, will not have sufficient power falling on it, and therefore it will not understand whether it has received a 0 or a 1. So it's going to make an error. So if you want to have a very good optical communication system, you'll have to ensure that dispersion is the least and attenuation is the least. Now, unfortunately, it so happens that dispersion and attenuation, we would really love to have these two wavelengths, these two things to happen at the same wavelength, but unfortunately, they happens at two different wavelengths. So one at 1300 nanometer, so one at 1550 nanometer. So you will always have to have a compromise. But generally nowadays, people prefer to use, people are in modern day optical communication systems uses 1550 nanometer, not 1300. Though the dispersion is small, you still have some dispersion in 1550 nanometer. But because we are more interested in minimizing the losses, we prefer to use 1550 nanometer rather than 1300 nanometer. But this is very important for silica fibers. 1300 nanometer is the wavelength at which it has almost no dispersion. So you have a very small range where the dispersion is the least. Okay, so now the very first optical communication system, or what you call as the first generation optical communication system, when people really started optical communication system, the very first generation, so I would call it as the first 1G or the first generation system, operated at 850 nanometer. 850 nanometer, and that was an LED. The very first optical communication system operated at 1850 nanometer using an LED, and it used a multi-mode optical fiber. A multi-mode optical fiber for transmission. Now, let's assume that if you assume that the length of the optical fiber was 1 kilometer, let's say the length is 1 kilometer, and let's consider two optical pulses. Let's say that you had, so you are using an LED, so obviously you are going to have multiple wavelengths. So let's say that one photon has a wavelength of 850 nanometer, and the other photon had a wavelength of 851 nanometer. So both of them are going to travel through a silica multi-mode optical fiber, and obviously you are going to have dispersion. So people found that 850 nanometer, this arrived slower. This was slower and this was faster. So this means that, so in this particular case, they found that the longer wavelength, so 851 is the longest among 850 and 851. So in the first generation, they found that the longer wavelength, it took a smaller time to reach the receiver. And the delay between these two, the delay in the arrival of these two pulses or these two photons was something like, so it was written as 84, it was written as minus 84 picosecond per kilometer nanometer. So 84 means that's the time delay between the arrival of this wavelength and this wavelength. And it turned out that the longer wavelength traveled faster. And in this case, so since the longer wavelength arrived faster, or it took less time, we generally denote this by using a minus sign. So if you see a minus sign like this, let's say that you have a communication system, and then for that particular communication system, the dispersion is given by minus 84 picosecond per kilometer nanometer. Let's say that you don't know what is the wavelength what is being used, but you just know that the dispersion for an optical communication system is minus 84 picosecond per kilometer per nanometer. So from this minus sign, you can always conclude that the longer wavelength is traveling faster. To denote that, that fact is denoted by using this minus sign, and this kind of dispersion is what is called as normal dispersion. Normal. So normal dispersion simply means you have a dispersion, but it's called as normal dispersion because longer wavelength signals travel faster, and hence you call it as normal dispersion. Now coming to the second and third generation optical communication system. So second and third generation. So it used what? It used an optical signal. It used a so remember, people were always trying to move towards longer wavelengths because they know that optical losses are smaller at longer wavelengths. So the second and third used signals somewhere near 1300 nanometer. Somewhere around 1300 nanometer. Now for this communication, also for this generation optical communication systems, the delay what they found was, so let's assume that you are sending two signals, let's say 1310 nanometer and 1311 nanometer. So let's say that you have two photons and they are traveling through a distance of 1 kilometer. So let's say the distance is 1 kilometer. So they found that the delay between the arrival of these two pulses was only 3 picosecond per kilometer nanometer. And in this case, they found that the longer wavelength is obviously 1311 here. This travels slower. And this travels faster, just opposite to what you have observed with 850 nanometer signals. And since the longer wavelength signals travel slower, that is denoted by a positive sign. And this kind of dispersion is called as, so you call this kind of dispersion as anomalous dispersion. So if you have a dispersive system where the longer wavelength signals travel slower, you call it as anomalous dispersion. Anomalous dispersion, which is something abnormal compared to this one. So you call it as anomalous dispersion. Now, if you look at the fourth generation optical communication system. So from third and fourth onwards, so from fourth onwards, they were actually using the single mode optical fibers. So and the optical signals were used. The signals were traveling at 1550 nanometer. Sorry, 1550 nanometer. So in this case, if you consider two signals, let's say 1550 nanometer and then 1551 nanometer, 1551 nanometer. So if these two are traveling through an optical fiber, so they found that again, this one travels faster, this one travels slower, similar to this one. So again, this is anomalous dispersion. Anomalous dispersion. And the dispersion what they found was 22 picosecond per kilometer nanometer. So plus indicates the longer wavelength signals are traveling slower. So you would see that the dispersion is almost 7 times larger compared to the 1300 nanometer case. So this is anomalous dispersion. So I'm just trying to give you an example to make you understand what is the difference between normal dispersion and anomalous dispersion. So if you see if you are given the specifications of an optical communication system, and if you know what is the dispersion parameter, then you can actually tell which wavelength would be traveling faster and which wavelength would be traveling slower, depending upon the sign of the material dispersion parameter. Okay, any questions?
Sir, can you go back to the graph which you went on for material dispersion? Yes, sir. Sir, here, so why is it moving downwards? Like, is this negative thing here also?
Which one? This one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that is because of the property of, that's because of the way in which the refractive index for silica optical fibers change.
Okay. Sir, you have labeled it like 50 instead of minus 50. So is it fine?
Which one?
In the y-axis, sir, it is.
This one.
Yes, sir.
Okay, probably that would okay. That's minus. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, sir, fine.
Okay. So the other kind of dispersion. So we studied about the material dispersion. So we studied about the material dispersion. So then the other kind of dispersion is what is called as the waveguide dispersion. So then, as the name indicates, waveguide, it is so that means the signal gets delayed because of the nature of the waveguide. So you know that a waveguide has a core and a cladding. Even optical fiber is a waveguide. It has a core and a cladding. And you know that the core refractive index is larger than the cladding refractive index. So which means if I'm launching signals inside an optical fiber or a waveguide, when you launch the signal, you wish that all the signals are confined inside the core. But we have seen that signals would not only stay in the core, it would also stay in the cladding as well. You can never make all the signals to confine inside the core. You can minimize you can increase the confinement factor, but you will always have some share of signal which is there in the cladding. All right. Now you know that the core refractive index and the cladding refractive index is slightly different. Core has a larger refractive index. So if I launch the signal inside the waveguide, which part of the optical fiber, so which signal would be traveling faster? It's pretty obvious that since the core refractive index is larger, the signals inside the core would be traveling slightly slower compared to the cladding. Right? Because N core is larger than N clad. And you know that the velocity of light is given by c by n. The velocity of light in a particular medium is given by c by n. So since n core is large, the velocity inside the core is going to be smaller. So if the core velocity is smaller, then it's going to arrive, the signals in the core is slightly going to delay. Whereas the signals in the cladding would be arriving at the receiver first. So because of which, at the photodetector, at the receiver side, the receiver is trying to capture all these signals. So you can see that the signals from the cladding or it would see that the signals in the cladding arrives first, whereas the signals from the core arrives after a delay. So that dispersion is what is called as the waveguide dispersion. And also you would see that, let's say that you are launching two signals. Let's say I'm launching from a laser, I'm launching two signals, 1550 nanometer and 1551 nanometer. So if I see how, now these two wavelengths, they are spread inside the waveguide in two different ways. They're not exactly they're not evenly, they are not similarly distributed. There is a difference in the way in which the power is being distributed inside the core and the cladding. It turns out that if the wavelength is slightly smaller, smaller wavelength signals are more confined inside the core. So it's more confined inside the core, whereas longer wavelength signals are spread more in the cladding. So again, so because of this, which means that, so we have studied about a factor which is called as the optical confinement factor or the mode confinement factor. So confinement factor, which is denoted by gamma, is given by the power inside the core divided by the total power. Total power is the core and the cladding power. So you would see that for shorter wavelength signals, gamma is larger. Whereas for longer wavelength signals, the gamma is slightly smaller because the signal spreads more into the waveguide. So you would see that if for longer wavelength signals, as the signal is penetrating more into the cladding, you would see that the group velocity increases. So the waveguide dispersion, the origin of the waveguide dispersion is due to the fact that inside an optical fiber or a waveguide, the power that is being carried by the core and the cladding is actually dependent on the wavelength. So that's the origin for the waveguide dispersion. Okay, any questions? Okay, we'll go to the next one. Okay, so which means the intramodel dispersion, it consists of the waveguide dispersion as well as the material dispersion. So if you take an optical fiber, if you take a silica optical fiber, if I plot the dispersion coefficient for a silica optical fiber, well, you would see that the material dispersion might be varying something like this by this red line, and the waveguide dispersion is usually waveguide dispersion is much smaller, but still it's always present. So you have, so this dotted line corresponds to the waveguide dispersion. So chromatic dispersion is actually the combination of, or the sum of, the material dispersion and the waveguide dispersion. So if I add them up, so if I add the material dispersion and the waveguide dispersion, if I add them up, the resultant intramodel dispersion is going to be like this blue solid line. And you would see that at this particular wavelength, let's say at 1310 or somewhere close to 1300, you would see that there's a particular wavelength at which the sum of material dispersion and the waveguide dispersion is 0. So you have got rid of two dispersions. You have got rid of material dispersion as well as waveguide dispersion. So if you operate at this particular wavelength, lambda naught, at this particular wavelength, you would see that optical fiber is going to have the least intramodel dispersion. So that particular wavelength is what is called as the zero dispersion wavelength. Zero dispersion, called as the zero dispersion wavelength. Okay, so so this is the point where the sum of the material dispersion and the waveguide dispersion cancels out. Now waveguide dispersion, the word waveguide dispersion says that you can actually tune the dispersion, you can actually change the waveguide dispersion, because you are designing the optical fiber, so you can slightly change the properties of the optical waveguide, thereby you can change the waveguide dispersion as well. So for example, you can change the refractive index profile as well as you can change the radius of the optical fiber, and thereby, so you can see that, so these different colored graphs, these lines, they show the waveguide dispersion for different core diameters. So you can see that as you change the core diameter, the waveguide dispersion also changes, and accordingly, if the material dispersion is a constant, so you would see that accordingly for different core diameters, the wavelength at which the zero dispersion happens also would change, because that wavelength, so we are actually interested in calculating dm plus dw. So if dm changes, then the wavelength at which the sum becomes zero also changes. So that means you can actually tune the dispersion. So that's a big advantage for optical engineers. So you can change the refractive index profile. This is how you achieve this. You can change the refractive index profile, and also you can change the radius of the optical fiber, and thereby you can tune the waveguide dispersion. Okay. Now, so I said that you can have a let's say you can have a, if you look at this figure, you can see that for a given optical fiber, you would see that there's only one particular wavelength at which the dispersion becomes zero. You call it as a zero dispersion wavelength. But practically, let's say that you have only exactly one wavelength. That means your laser should be designed exactly at that particular wavelength. Your receiver also should be designed, your photodetector also should be designed exactly at that particular wavelength, which is going to be different. So what we would do is, we would always like to have some margin, some tolerance. That means instead of having one particular wavelength, you want to extend, you want to have the zero dispersion over a broad range of wavelengths where the dispersion is zero. So that can be done by using an optical fiber, which is called as the dispersion flattened optical fiber. So the refractive index profile of the dispersion flattened optical fiber looks something like this. So, so these are the cores. So this is a core, and this white region, it has a smaller refractive index, and again it has a larger refractive index. So you can actually modify the refractive index profile of an optical fiber, and thereby you would see that the material dispersion is like this, the waveguide dispersion is like this. If I add them up, you would see that the resultant dispersion becomes almost like flat, not exactly zero, but almost like flat. So between lambda 1 and lambda 2, if you operate anywhere between lambda 1 and lambda 2, you achieve the goal of having a minimum dispersion. Not zero dispersion, but the least dispersion. So those kind of fibers are called as dispersion flattened fibers. And you can also shift the dispersion. For example, if you want to change the, you can also design the optical fiber in such a way that you can slightly tune the wavelength at which zero dispersion happens. So those kind of fibers are called as dispersion shifted fibers. Whereas this one is called as dispersion flattened fibers. So dispersion flattened fibers are way better, but unfortunately, these kind of fibers are very expensive. We would wish to have these kind of fibers inside our optical communication systems. In fact, this one is a new invention. Not really new, probably 10 or 15 years back. But by the time, people have already started laying optical fiber. So you might wonder, why are people not really removing all the existing optical fibers and replace it by dispersion flattened optical fiber? The reason is because it's a very costly business. But people are trying to, so at least for the coming up optical communication links, people are trying to establish optical fiber communication links by using dispersion flattened optical fibers. Okay, the last kind of dispersion what I want to discuss is what is called as polarization mode dispersion. Now this dispersion is the one which is most dominant in single mode optical fibers. In single mode optical fibers, in fact, for long haul optical communication systems, single mode optical fiber is the preferred one. And for single mode optical fibers, this dispersion is the one which is going to be the dominant. So you know what is polarization mode dispersion? You know what is birefringence? You know that. So you have already studied what is birefringence. You know that in an optical waveguide or a fiber, you have two different modes. You can have two mutually perpendicular modes. For example, the TE mode and the TM mode. You know what is birefringence, right? The material sees a refractive index depending upon the polarization of the mode. The refractive index is polarization dependent. So TE wave sees a different refractive index. TM wave sees a different another refractive index. So these two modes, when they travel through optical fiber, they are going to arrive at the receiver at different time intervals. The one which sees the smaller refractive index would arrive faster. The one which sees a higher refractive index is going to arrive slower, which means there is always a delay in their arrival. And that delay, or the dispersion due to that delay, is what is called as the polarization mode dispersion. And for single mode optical fibers, it's the polarization mode dispersion which limits the bandwidth or the bit rate of an optical fiber. Okay, any questions so far? And you can also have certain fibers. So you might wonder why it should. So let's say that you are launching an optical signal, and let's say that the polarization is also fixed. You might wonder when you launch the signal inside an optical fiber, it so happens that the receiver side, when you are trying to detect the signal, you would see that the polarization might be different. You call it as polarization conversion. Polarization conversion. So ideally, polarization should not change, but polarization always changes. Just like when you enter IAST and when you leave IAST, you both will be in both the situation you will be a different personality. So the same thing happens to an optical signal also. As it propagates, as it flows through an optical fiber, the polarization changes. The reason is because inside an optical fiber, you can have lots of perturbations. The perturbations means you can have the optical fiber need not always be exactly concentric like this. Need not be exactly circular. There are some places where there is some difference in the refractive index, or there is some difference in the shape, or there is some difference in the refractive index profile. All those things can matter. So because of which, when you launch the signal inside optical fiber and when it travels over a very long distance, it's almost obvious, it's almost inevitable that the polarization gets changed, and you call it as polarization conversion. So the discussion, the details is beyond the scope of this lecture. So anyway, just try to understand that you can have polarization conversion. So, but you would prefer to have optical fibers where the polarization is always maintained. You don't want the polarization to change. So there are certain optical fibers. Obviously, they are going to be costly and they are more difficult to make. But there are certain optical fibers where you can change the refractive index profile, or you can change the geometry of the optical fiber in such a way that the launched polarization is always maintained or preserved. You call such fibers as polarization maintaining optical fiber, PMF. It's called as polarization maintaining optical fiber. So these kind of fibers, they are quite costly. So people generally don't use these optical fibers in optical communication links. Optical communication link, the distance between transmitter and receiver is like it could be even as large as thousands of kilometers. So that means you need lots of fibers, and if the optical fiber is very costly, then laying these kind of optical links is going to be expensive. So generally, these kind of polarization maintaining optical fibers are generally used in experimental applications, and also in some special kind of optical sensors. Optical sensors. For example, there is an optical sensor called as optical gyroscope. Have you heard about this device? Optical.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So have you studied about this working?
Very little.
Very little. Okay. All right. Fine. So you know that when you're launching when you are trying to launch a satellite, or when you are launching a missile, and let's say that you want to always guide the launch vehicle to a particular at a particular location or at a particular spot. So when you launch your vehicle, this vehicle, as it's traveling through the atmosphere, it usually has a spin. There's a rotational rate for that. So your rotational rate will always have to be maintained. It has to be measured. It has to be continuously monitored. So what generally we do is we use modern day, the most modern sensors use a device called as, or we try to use a device called as optical gyroscope, where you have a optical fiber, or you have a ring like structure, where you have a closed waveguide like this, a waveguide in the form of a circle. That means the signal flows like this. You take an optical fiber, for example, you take an optical fiber and form it in the, you make it in the form of a loop. And then if I launch a signal at this point, you would see that one half of the signal would flow in the anti-clockwise direction. The other one, sorry, would flow in the clockwise direction. The other one would flow in the anti-clockwise direction. So if this is not rotating, you would see that if I put a photodetector here, you would see that both the signals would arrive at the same time interval, because this one is not rotating. But suppose if it is rotating, then what would happen is one of them would arrive faster, the other one would arrive slower. And at this photodetector, at this point, both these signals are trying to interfere. So depending upon what is the delay in their arrival, you can actually measure what is the separation between the interference fringes. Interference fringes means you will form alternative bands of alternative dark and bright bands. So you can actually measure what is the spacing between them, and you can actually calculate what is the rotational rate. So the most modern launch vehicles, and in fact missiles and everything, we would prefer to use optical gyroscope. Though in India this technology is not completely matured, but this is what we are actually aiming for, optical gyroscopes. Other gyroscopes have lots of other disadvantages, whereas optical gyroscopes, they have a lot of advantages. So we would prefer to use. So in these kind of devices, you don't generally worry about the cost. So in these kind of devices, we would always prefer to use polarization maintaining optical fibers, where accuracy is very important. Okay, so now this particular fiber, this fiber, this is called as a panda fiber, P-A-N-D-A. It's called as panda fiber. So if you look at the cross section, the face looks like panda. So these two are cores, which has a slightly higher refractive index. The other one is the cladding, it has a smaller refractive index. So the face looks like panda, so you call it as a panda fiber. So panda fiber is a kind of polarization maintaining fiber. Okay, so to summarize dispersion, so we have studied that. So what were the kinds of dispersion what we studied? So dispersion basically means you have broadening of optical path. Okay, so let me just summarize everything in one. Let me see whether I can find an empty slide for you. Okay, so let me summarize here. So you know that dispersion. So dispersion means this is the broadening of optical pulse. Broadening. And why do we hate dispersion? Because an optical pulse which contains ones and zeros, when it flows through an optical fiber, they gets broadened like this. You have this intersymbol interference. The receiver is going to make an error. The bit error rate will increase, and the communication system is no more faithful. Okay, so the first kind of dispersion what we studied was intermodal dispersion. Intermodal dispersion is the dispersion that happens between the modes. That means if you have a multi-mode optical fiber, so we saw that you have a multi-mode optical fiber, and if this is the core, one would go straight, the other one would undergo total internal reflection. So the one which goes straight, which takes the shortest path, is going to travel first, is going to arrive first. The other one is going to arrive slightly delayed. So it's called as the intermodal dispersion. So this is the dispersion that happens between the modes. Between the mode. So this kind of dispersion is also called as multipath dispersion. There are different names: multipath or ray dispersion. Ray dispersion. They all are the same dispersion. So that's the intermodal dispersion. Now how do we minimize intermodal dispersion? Instead of a step index multimode fiber, you use a graded index multimode fiber. So this dispersion is dominant in multimode optical fibers. All right. The second kind of dispersion what we studied was, we just saw, was the intramodal dispersion. Intramodal dispersion, and this dispersion is the dispersion that happens within the mode. Within the mode. And this dispersion, it consists of two things. One is the material dispersion, and you also have the waveguide dispersion. Waveguide dispersion. So intramodal dispersion, it's also called as chromatic dispersion. It's also called as chromatic dispersion. So material dispersion happens due to the fact that two reasons. It's because of the fact that materials are dispersive in nature. The refractive index is a function of wavelength, and also the optical sources has a finite line width. So because of which you have material dispersion, and we found that at somewhere around 1300 nanometers, silica optical fibers have the least material dispersion. And waveguide dispersion is due to the fact that is due to the difference in the optical confinement factor of the optical waveguide. So core refractive index and cladding refractive index is slightly different, and therefore the signals in the waveguide, the signals in the cladding can travel faster compared to the signals in the core, and also the optical confinement factor is also a function of wavelength. Longer wavelength signals have a larger group velocity. So the combination of these two is what is called as intramodal dispersion, or also called as the chromatic dispersion. The other kind of dispersion, what we study, which is dominant in which optical fiber? In single mode optical fiber, that dispersion is what is called as the polarization mode dispersion, and this is dominant in single mode optical fibers. So this is the this is dominant in the single mode optical fiber. I mean to say that this fiber, this dispersion is the one which will always dominate in single mode optical fiber, and will also limit the bandwidth of an optical fiber. So this broadening, this dispersion happens, the broadening due to this dispersion happens due to the fact that the refractive index seen by a mode is dependent on the polarization. So TE mode and TM mode has a different polarization. So the way in which you can minimize polarization mode dispersion is to use a polarization maintaining fiber, and for minimizing this intramodal dispersion, you can use this dispersion flattened fibers or dispersion shifted fibers and all those things. Okay, so that's all I want to discuss about dispersion. The next topic, or in fact, yeah, okay, I'll stop here. Any questions? So that concludes dispersion. So any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, then thank you all. We'll see in the next class. So please go through the homework. I have posted a homework. It consists of some derivations. Please do that. And also it consists of some kind of numerical plotting, for which you need to use either MATLAB or Mathematica. So you can discuss among your friends for solving the homework, but please do not copy. And if I find that somebody has copied the code, or if somebody has simply copied the figures, I'm not going to I'm not going to evaluate your homework. So please submit the homework. The due date is November 22nd. Okay, so thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.